Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful country, our friends south of the border, and all around the world. Welcome back to your favorite Angry Canadian on the first day of June 2023. Do you see how fast the months are rolling by? I mean, crap, summer is going to be a fast season because everyone loves it. It's warm, you're out, you're whatever. And then kids are going back to school in fall. I guess I'm peeing on people's parade, feeling good. But I notice time flying by very much. So, what's on the agenda today? Well, let's talk a little bit about another subject that is going to get people in trouble. Climate change. Global warming, man-made. We're facing an existential threat to humanity. I mean, I know that for sure because I've heard it said over and over.
And science tells us that how we act or fail to act in the next 12 years will determine the very livability of our planet.
In the oil and gas industry, those who work in the fossil fuel industry are brought along as partners to make sure that we make this transition in the 10 years that we have left to us, as the science and scientists tell us.
So now it's 10 years.
I'm sure you're familiar with the scientific reports that tell us that we have all of 12 years to significantly cut carbon emissions.
5 million students around the world took to the streets in a climate strike last Friday. Students from Canada, from coast to coast to coast, flooded the streets with a clear message. There is no planet B. We have 12 years.
Bullshit.
We have 12 years to avert climate disaster.
Bullshit.
We have 12 years.
We're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And this is the war. This is our World War II.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
From the IPCC report, we have only about a dozen years.
Bullshit.
We have 12 years.
Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
Well, do you remember when that was a big topic? Just today I was going through some of my hard drives and I came across this little clip I made a while back, and it just reminds me of how asininely stupid everything has been going. Not long ago, this was the cry. We only have 10 years. We only got 12 years. Oh, everyone is telling us the end is coming. The earth is warming. We're going to be like the proverbial frog in that boiling pot on the stove. Well, slowly brought to a boil. And we're not going to jump out of this pot until it's too late. And by that time, well, you can't jump. But you notice how they've stopped talking about the time frame now? They're not going to tell you that because they know they had no idea what the hell they're talking about. And they're afraid that, just like what happened with the pandemic and people found out and aren't happy, well, it's quite possible people will find out that, hey, shit, man, it's 2030 and it's not the end of the world. Oh, my God. But in the meantime, are they ever going to scare a lot of people?
When it comes to climate change, some people will tell you that the problem is too complex, that it's hard to explain, that the solutions are even more complex and even harder to explain. Well, I think that's an excuse offered by those who, for whatever reason, don't want to act.
And I just want to read something that they should read this at the Climate Summit. I think they should really read this today to describe what's going on. And this is from a reliable source, American Meteorological Society Monthly Weather Review publication, that the Arctic Ocean is warming up. Icebergs are growing scarcer, and in some places the seals are finding the water too hot, according to a report by the Commerce Department at Bergen, Norway. Reports from fishermen, sea hunters, explorers all over point to radical change in climate conditions. Why aren't they reading this? And hitherto unheard of temperatures in the Arctic zone. Exploration expeditions report scarcely any ice as far north as 81 degrees. Soundings show the Gulf Stream very warm. Masses of ice have been replaced by moraines of earth and stones, and it goes on and on. Within a few years, it's predicted that due to the ice melt, the sea will rise and make most coastal cities uninhabitable.
What year was that written?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. This is 1922. This is November 1922, and this is real. This is not urban legend.
Yeah.
This has really happened. This was really reported. It was warm then, and then guess what happened after that? Of course, it cooled off, and so I just had to throw that. Monthly weather review.
Meteorological Society publication.
These were all facts. It was extremely warm back then in the polar regions.
And could I hit one up Tom for a second here? Okay. Tom mentioned 90%. 90% of the time since the Ice Age, the Earth was warmer than it is now. Actually, 90% of the time since creation, the Earth was warmer than it is now, because the geological evidence indicates that over all of geologic history, 4.65 billion years, somewhere between 5 and 10% of that time was there any substantial ice on Earth. And now there is. There's Greenland, Antarctica, and then summer ice all over the planet, well, lots of places. So you're talking 5 or 10% of the time was the planet cooler than it is now.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we're at one of the lowest levels of CO2 in Earth's history. Okay,
yes,
that's really
very
important.
Good point.
I mean, 440 million years ago, when we were in the depths of the coldest period in the last half billion years, we had 1,100% of today's CO2 levels, according to geologic proxies. So, yeah, CO2 is very low right now. They say 40% rise in the last century since 1880. Well, that's peanuts in natural terms.
Well,
so
we should be very glad.
Wasn't there a carboniferous?
The carbon dioxide in this room is now around 900. Now, either we should be happy about it or perhaps evacuate the room for fear that there's something bad about it. There's nothing bad about carbon dioxide.
Maybe it's a politician who smells an opportunity to win a few votes. Maybe it's an investor who sees the chance to make a few short-term bucks. Whatever their reason, their long list of excuses won't cut it anymore. Here's what one leading scientist said last month when talking about the solution to climate change. We show it can be done within the laws of physics and chemistry, then the final tick box is political will. Well, I know that Canadians have that will. And I also know that you are counting on us, and we will not let you down.
So assuming that's false, we'll assume that she intends to tax, and that means that the pays will pay once the carbon tax is will be the full cost of the carbon tax per liter once the tax and the tax is fully implemented.
He wants to say it was false that he doesn't have a climate plan. So does that mean he is sticking with everyone with the previous 60 years climate plan? That's what he was
The question was how much per liter once the carbon tax is fully implemented, how much?
The point I'm sharing is in the 21st century, the world is building climate. There's denial that that's just itself.
What was Canada's ranking in the climate performance index as
What is important rankings? TD judging our green economy.
So what was Canada's ranking in the climate performance index? What was ranking?
TD judged our climate change budget at our United States and the rest of the world as green economy investigation.
What turns out to be 41 cents a liter when this carbon tax is fully implemented. How much will that cost net to the average family?
I would like the Conservatives to really look themselves in the mirror and ask, is it credible in the 21st century to not have a climate plan? Because that is the reality of this opposition. It's a disservice to all Canadians.
She has a tax plan, but she can't even tell us how much it will cost. We know it will be 41 cents a liter for the first carbon tax. How much will it cost the average family in higher heat, gas, and grocery bills? How much?
As the leader of the official opposition should know, our price on pollution goes right back into the pockets of every family in Canada. It goes back into the pockets of families here in Ontario, of families in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in Manitoba, across the country.
The answer, according to the parliamentary budget officer, is in PEI it'll be $1,500, for example, in Ontario $1,800, in Alberta $2,700. And that's just the first carbon tax. We just learned that the government plans to implement a second carbon tax called a so-called clean fuel standard. How much will that tax add to the cost of a liter of gasoline when fully implemented? How much?
I'd like to remind the Conservative leader of what he said and everyone sitting beside him when they asked Canadians for their vote in the last election. We will assess progress so carbon prices can be on a path of $170 to a ton. Are they disavowing that, Madam Chair?
I never supported such a thing, so of course I don't need to disavow it. But the question was, the minister plans a second carbon tax. A second carbon tax. How much will that tax add to the price of a liter of gas? How much?
Madam Chair, I just read from the 2021 Conservative platform. The leader of the opposition ran as an MP on that platform. He now says he didn't support it. So was he misleading Canadians when he asked for their vote?
No. The answer, Madam Speaker, is that the second carbon tax will cost another $1,000 in Alberta, another $611 in Manitoba, another $850 in Newfoundland and Labrador. Where does she expect the people of those provinces to get that money?
Madam Chair, let's talk about something else. Every single Conservative, including the Conservative leader, promised to Canadians when he asked for their vote. This is a sacred trust we enter into in election campaigns. The Conservative platform said, we will finalize and improve.
So she's got carbon tax 1, carbon tax 2. She can't tell anybody what they cost. Either she doesn't know or she doesn't want Canadians to know. Could you tell us what will be the total cost to an average family, net of rebates, of carbon tax 1 plus carbon tax 2? How much, and how much?
Madam Chair, I would like to refresh the Conservative leader's memory because in the last campaign, his party promised to improve the clean fuel regulations to reduce carbon emissions from every liter of gasoline and other liquid fuels we burn. Now, was that something that the Conservative leader supported when he knocked on doors?
The question was, how much is the total cost per family of the two combined carbon taxes plus the tax on the tax and the tax? How much, and how much? That's the easy question. Can't she's got an official there. Perhaps he could hand her a briefing note. How much is it?
The point, Madam Chair, is plan beats no plan. And these conservatives either were misleading Canadians in the last election, which it seems they were, or today they simply do not have a climate plan.
So I welcome to the stage Mark Morano, who will be talking, I guess, about the Great Reset, right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, and thank the Heartland Institute for this opportunity. I'm going to talk Great Reset today. You know, when James and Jim asked me, they said, Mark, do you believe in free speech? And I said, absolutely. I think it's one of the fundamental bedrocks of our society. And they said, well, that's good, because you're giving a free speech in Orlando. So here I am. Great Reset. Now, I spoke this morning at a panel, but I just want to say that in March 2020, our entire climate energy debate changed, probably forever within our lifetime. It accelerated a lot of trends. What happened in March of 2020 essentially was the bypassing of democracy for COVID regulation.
When chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
You are the unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem, period, end of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts and running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free, and so forth.
We've been patient.
And don't get me started on the lunatics who won't take any of the COVID vaccines.
Life is too short to be an ass. Life is way too short to be ignorant of the promise of something that is helping people worldwide.
Maybe you're doing it because you're disconnected or disorganized. Maybe you have some sympathetic psychological reasons. But maybe you're just being antisocial.
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them stupid. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for healthcare.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
We're going to see in our state almost 2 types of America.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. And that choice doesn't seem so tough to make. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right in and we'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Weezy.
Pointing back to the unvaccinated who are really creating a problem in this country, every death that we are seeing from COVID could have been prevented.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you.
And the left and the climate activists were very jealous at first, and then later they're like, we got to do the same thing. And this had happened in Obama. They had the executive orders with all their climate stuff, and they were trying, because he failed to get it through Congress. But they were lusting after the idea of just declaring an emergency and then doing whatever you wanted. Very similar to the whole concept of the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. Now, I'm going to explain today how this is a multi-pronged attack. This was decades of trends that led to this, and our whole climate debate now is no longer in the Democratic realm. At least they're pushing it to keep it out of the Democratic realm. This is Klaus Schwab, you know him. The pandemic is a rare, narrow window of opportunity to reset our world. He said this in June of 2020, 2 months after COVID lockdowns hit.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. This pandemic has provided an opportunity This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. Building back better.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Building back better.
Honourable member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again. The honourable member, questions and comments. The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
building back better. Building back better. Building back better. Building back better. 2 days ago. We asked what happened to that information. Was it ever briefed up out of CSIS? It was not. CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
Mr. Speaker, I've just been informed by the National Security Advisor that the CSIS intelligence assessment of July 20th, 2021 was sent by CSIS to the relevant departments and to the National Security Advisor in the PCO. This contradicts what the Prime Minister said yesterday. He said CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
Will the Prime Minister correct the record that this report and information was sent to the departments and to the Privy Council office?
Yeah.